Hello, and welcome to the Exponential Growth Podcast, powered by Analyst Investors. I'm your host, David Olivencia, co-founder of Analyst Investors, and a passionate advocate for leveraging innovation and technology to drive success. Let's get started. This is Exponential Growth. All right. Well, hey, welcome to the Exponential Growth Podcast live from Salvi Studios in the heart of Chicago. It's great to be here. I love what they've done. Very excited about today's episode. Dear friend of mine for many years, a co-founder of Analyst Investors, where I'm also co-founder and lead, and also my partner and our fund, the Analyst Ventures Fund. She has a broad range of experience, financial services industry luminary, in my opinion, an amazing life story of leadership and accomplishment. And I so look forward to really, and I've learned more and more about Adela's life story. And I don't think a lot of people know it. I mean, they might know bits and pieces of it. So hopefully through here, we'll share a little bit more. Adela Cepeda, welcome to the Exponential Growth Podcast. It's great to have you.
It's so exciting to be here. Yeah.
Excellent. And so, Adela, let's start with, and I like with all the podcasts, and let's start with you, and let's kind of take it to the beginning and just walk people a little bit through your life and your career and the journey that you've had.
Sure. It's a journey of many, many miles. Like most immigrants, my parents brought me when I was 6 in 1964. So a little scary to think what's happening now in terms of a journey that people still take. We flew into New York, and my parents decided they were going to make a start there because they had heard that education was free in America. They had 3 kids at that time, and they felt that education was the most important tool and enabler that they could provide for us. Mm-hmm. And as the oldest, this really was harped on me. And I was a model student and always trying to help them reach their dream. Now, there's an important point for parents. When do your dreams become your kids' dreams? I can't tell you when, but at some point, going to college and becoming a professional, which is how my parents described it, became my goal. Mm. On number one, on top of everything, it superseded relationships, everything. This was what I had to do, and I had to set an example. And I went about trying to do it as best I could, and with a lot of great guidance. They landed in purchasing a house on Long Island. Counseling was great. They directed me to Ivy League schools. I did great at Harvard. It fit into that network. That helped me get a job in investment banking.
So let's pause there, though. That's so you kind of like, so your immigrant family get here, blue collar, and you get into Harvard, right? One of the world's leading universities, right? Amazing accomplishment. So you must have been very focused on education. Maybe just double click a little bit on how that happened. What happened there?
Yeah, I was focused on...
And that experience, too.
Yeah, I was focused on academics, doing well, but I learned from, just randomly, I heard from someone who had kids in high school that being a good student wasn't enough to get you into a good school. And I was like, what? Because I thought...
Work hard, get good grades.
Yeah, I had good grades. She said, no. You have to be like an athlete. And I thought, my heart sank. I was never going to be that. Or, be active in school activities. And she told me this, I think, in 8th grade. So when I started high school in 9th grade, I was in everything. And people say I'm a high-energy person. No, I was trying to do the things required to get into a good school. And once you develop those skills of multitasking, and they just stay with you. Those are great. It's a great way to be, I think, People say, well, you have to focus on one thing. In my career, I have only focused on one thing, but I've always done other things to complement other interests. And then at Harvard, interesting that is a school where education, it's important, but everybody is academically excellent. And the expectation is you will be doing other things in the community, things with the student community, athletics, something.
Yeah.
Everybody had another activity or more.
Mm-hmm.
And because their approach to education is they are training the leaders of tomorrow.
Right.
And leadership is more than academic.
Yeah, it is.
So I had that opportunity to be there amongst people motivated the same way, where it wasn't strange to be running an organization and then, you have reading period to catch up and get through your exams, and that was fine.
Yeah.
So that was my background, and I aspired to go to business school because the way I interpreted it, I was going to run a multinational corporation. And because I was, multinational myself,
Yeah.
I was from another country. And I didn't know exactly how that would be, but through internships are very important. I had a great management internship at AT&T, and then I got into business school, and they deferred me for a couple of years, and they said, you should really do the most quantitative thing. Women, that's what they told me, women have difficulty with the quantitative aspect of the MBA. And what was that? I already was an economics major,
Yeah.
and they didn't apparently think that was enough. But a lot of people in my grade were going to Wall Street. There was the beginning of this program called Analyst Program. It's not about research. It was about the young people that did a lot of the work doing the comparative analytical analyses. Actually, they were done by hand back then.
I know. I was just thinking about that.
Yeah, well, I did it by hand. So I love the new technology that changed that. And I said, well, maybe that's quantitative. And I went to Wall Street and started in New York at a big investment bank, Smith Barney. And it ended up being so difficult, so challenging. Even my education, it didn't count for a lot there because the language was so different that I felt I was, and everybody else seemed to accept it and do it, and for me it was like, wait, what is this? What are they talking about? So the challenge of it kept me there for over a decade.
Wow.
And
you took it on, right?
No.
You could, a lot of people say, "Oh man, this is too hard. I gotta."
Oh no.
No, I'm done. I'm out. Right? No. You said
I
how?
wanted to understand it.
Yeah.
So I learned how to do. One of my first assignments when I came to Chicago was to try and sell a division of a company owned by Dow Chemical and maybe Kraft Foods. It was a sausage maker machine, and I had to go to Moline or someplace like that and take prospective investors or buyers to it. It went for $25 million eventually. It was too small that the senior people in the firm didn't care. But I got to do this.
Yeah.
Write the brochure, go
Pitch
with
the
people.
investment.
Yeah, sometimes private planes for the senior management.
That's nice.
Anyway, I got to see industrialists at work.
Yeah.
I did my MBA at night. I married here in Chicago. And even though I thought I would go back to New York, it never happened, and I don't think it will. This is a great place to build community, where there is a community. It's a great place to build a family. I was able to do that here. And it's just a very fun place. I've enjoyed it, and the doors are open, even if you're from another place.
Yeah, it's diverse industries, diverse communities. It's beautiful. I mean, I really sometimes I drive into the city, and look, I grew up here. I've lived all over the place, but there's something about the beauty of this and the business community and just the history, right? It's an amazing history. And so there was a time though then too. You're building your business in Chicago. What was the you did some municipal bonds, and you did a bit of that business. Maybe talk a little bit about that business before we jump into a little bit of
Sure.
the venture side.
Well, investment banking is a tough business in the sense that it's competitive, and you go for all. You go to get the assignment, to be the lead, and once you do have this client, you have to execute, and that means very long hours, and even traveling around the country. When you have an IPO, you're taking clients all over your brokerage offices and familiarizing them. It's a lot of work. So I had a family after 1985, 86. My husband and I had 3 girls. So it just became a lot. And when the market was down, it's also a cyclical business.
Yeah.
And I started a business in money management. It was fixed income bonds with 2 other women. I really love that business of money management, but I learned so much more. I mean, the basis of the process I acquired from investment banking. You come prepared, you summarize it, you have a beautiful presentation, you have your talking points. All of this you learn from doing it and seeing others do it. But when you're trying to sell your own firm, that's not enough. So going after that opportunity to get an assignment, to get an allotment from, a large corporation or a large pension fund, whoa, that was a lot of work. But I learned how to do that because I wanted that business to succeed so much. And then personal things got in the way. My husband died. I had 3 girls. They were very young. The oldest was 9. And I just had to, produce in a different way. Mm-hmm. And so I had seen an opening advising municipalities. As an expert in the capital markets, I could understand trends. I knew who the players were, who's a retail broker, who's an institutional, who can execute for you, the city of Chicago, who can execute for the county, what kind of financing are we raising, who specializes in transportation, who, I could figure that out. I had a lot of support. I always hired younger people, just like I had led the analyst program at Smith Barney in Chicago. I hired people that were smart, that could help me. Mm-hmm. And, that took off. I became the top advisor in the state of Illinois, and in a few years, more nationally, the state of Connecticut. And then I won the mandate for the city of New York, which was highly competitive and lasted, like 15 years. But it put me on the map as a top 10 player as a municipal advisor. Top 10 for over a decade. It's something that few minority firms accomplished in any category.
Right.
And it was just because of the volume of business. And I had an office in New York. I had an office here. And I kept it like that. I never went national, like to go to Texas or California, although many people said it, because I was a single parent. And so people say, you can't do it all. You can do different things. I had to give up some of the potential of my business, but I had to keep my family. And children need attention. And so I managed that way. And also, I managed with support. Again, I always had very strong financial people to work with me. And because of the volume of business and the visibility of the assignments, I would get very large transactions, cutting edge credits, like maybe a new credit.
Yeah.
Those are unique assignments. So when things changed on Wall Street, sometimes minorities are the first to go. And they would come to me and say, I could, and I would say, well, I don't have that level of business that you had at wherever.
Yeah, it's the big firm that you were at.
Yeah. And they would say, no, that's okay. And they could run my office in New York. And, some of the people that worked for me One was Secretary of State of New York after he left. He now runs one of the major issuers of New York, the Dorm Authority, Robert Rodriguez. Another one is one of the few Asian managing directors in investment banking. She's at Wells Fargo, Christina Eng, and you name it. There have been one became comptroller of the city of Chicago. That's the caliber of people that we needed in order to effectively negotiate on behalf of our clients. So that business was great, but you know what? It was what I loved doing, being in the market. And at some point, things changed with regulation.
Yeah.
Starting in '93, I sat on corporate boards.
Yeah.
They were mutual funds, and then there was a bank, and then there was BMO in 2012. And as a director, you have to operate always at the highest levels. And when the regulations came in for municipal advisors, of course, I was going to comply with everything. But the cost for a small firm, it's just unbearable.
Yeah.
We can't do it the way J.P. Morgan and another large institute. We just can't.
Yeah.
It's just not economically feasible. So what that prompted was consolidation of the industry. And I was sitting there with some very attractive clients. I sold to the number one player in the industry. And then in 2019, you know.
So you had the exit.
I did an exit. Absolutely. I did an exit. I did a lot of work to exit.
Yeah.
I did the L-band program at Stanford for small businesses, and I had a daughter going to Stanford, and there were buyers of all different kinds of formats, and I positioned the firm so that I could take advantage of that and find the right buyer. And I'm happy that it happened because it freed me up at the end of 2019 to focus on Angeles.
Yeah. Well, and so, you touched on some ground. I just want to, summarize this, right? You go to Harvard, you get out of you do investment banking, right? That in a major Wall Street firm, rise the ranks, sell deals, jump into municipal bonds, that business, understanding large pension funds, how things work, and a little bit different area of finance, right? Then you have this advisory firm, right? You're in Chicago, New York. You're also getting your MBA in the evenings, working hard there. You're serving then you serve on a bank board, right? So you think about investment banking, municipal bonds. You call it retail commercial banking. In addition to that, you also mentioned you're on funds. You saw all these big multi-billion-dollar funds, Mercer funds, Pathway funds, UBS funds, right? And so this is think about the amount of just the depth and breadth of the financial services, expertise that you have, and all of that, and then now we'll jump in a little bit now. This venture private equity, right, which is another financial asset class in itself, and you're spending a lot of your time, most of your time, in this space. What when you think about investments and investing, why call it venture, startups, early stage companies? What excites you? Why are you excited about it? Those who are listening, why should they care about it? Tell us about your excitement of venture, early stage.
Venture is kind of the seed, right? It's kind of where a company starts. Companies that are the top valued corporations in America today were not that long ago startups. Google, Microsoft, Apple, you name it. Those guys were in school the other day, and today they're the most valuable companies in America. The trajectory of that, the opportunity to invest before a company is public, and I saw that a lot, those early investors, and then the company goes public, and the phenomenal wealth that can be created, it was startling. I mean, this is how fortunes are made, is really when you can be an investor early, that in a company that then becomes public or sold, or that creates immeasurable wealth. And guess what? It's a segment venture that was never open to us. Now, I'm very conscious about what has been the history and the opportunity for Latinos. And we have just been shut off from that. Number one, our economic position doesn't, in appearances, would not enable us to be participants in that. To be an investor at our level in private equity or venture capital or any kind of private fund like that requires us to be an accredited investor. Yeah. That means earning over $200,000 a year. That means having assets over $1 million. Those are very high marks for our community. But we do have it. Mm-hmm. And even though we are the most entrepreneurial ethnic group, our businesses do not scale to even $1 million. And I learned that at Stanford in the L-band program, and I wondered, well, why is that? Well, it's easy to see now. It's because we can't provide the capital for so many startups and new businesses that would benefit tremendously from it. And that's very disappointing to me, that I see in the lack of participation in venture capital the reason why there is this wealth gap with our community. I suffer that. And I suffer it because you can't help but see the dynamic numbers that we represent as a population. And as we become a larger part of America, if we don't try to breach that wealth gap, that doesn't bode well. Yeah. It's revolutionary, really. And so those of us that can have to help open the path for wealth accumulation for our community. Some of that is the language that we need to breach, and I speak modestly about it. Even as someone with the kind of education that I had, I struggled in investment banking the first years. I just couldn't get it. I couldn't get what they were talking about. And you would say, well, look what you studied. I didn't study biology. I studied economics. Mm-hmm. And it was still incredibly hard. And of course, socially, I'm sure it was, I felt it being hard. And we were some of the first women, going to Wall Street in any significant number. That's hard.
That's right.
Too.
I didn't mention that. I didn't. Because I didn't mention that either,
I used
right?
to think that was the issue, but it was a combination of all those issues. And so I think that having seen and having helped entrepreneurs reach tremendous wealth by being their banker, taking them public, and then, public, and after public, you sell again. So there are many opportunities for extraordinary accumulation of wealth. How do I bring some of that to our community? How do I help other people see that? And that is why the work with Angeles, it's the most exciting, fun experience I've ever had, because it's so tied to a mission of helping others. And yes, you and I are, serious capitalists. I've never even considered any other kind of economy as being fruitful to anyone other than capitalism. Mm-hmm. Many of us immigrants come looking for capitalism.
Exactly.
That is the driving force of immigrants, that, we can start it, we can do it, we can succeed financially. So we're in a culture that accepts and adopts this. How do we break the limitations that a different language, a lack of skill, but I find it mostly driven by language. My father was an electrician. He understood HVAC and everything, but he never could get the licenses to practice as an electrician. So he had to do it, in ways that resulted in lower income for our family. My mother she probably wrote and read English better than me, but she couldn't speak it, so that limited her opportunities. We are limited by language initially, and then that leads to diminished opportunities.
Yeah.
I think that what excited me about venture capital was it was an opportunity to catapult from wherever we are to incredible financial gain. And the way we were doing it, you and I and the founders of Angeles, was we were opening it up so that if you were an accredited investor, you didn't have to put $200,000 in.
Right.
We could split it up in small amounts and give you an opportunity to invest in something that had tremendous potential. And from the beginning, we have hit on winners. And it's so comforting because when you take someone on this kind of path, you're not sure where it's going.
You don't. You have. I mean, they say they're going to go here, but you have no.
You have no idea.
No idea they're going to
okay,
get there.
David is a technologist. He'll know about this. And then we have such a great number of members that are in technology and other fields, and it was so another way to leverage our skills was to bring in that expertise. It really could make a difference in how they read the opportunity and then related. And then we've had the opportunity to coach and work with how many interns by now? 50?
Yeah, 50-ish. Right?
And so many have gone on to finance because the language.
Yeah.
Again, they could talk about due diligence. I mean, they could talk about management.
Yeah.
I mean, it's these
unit economics,
yes,
CAC, LTV.
yeah, exactly. All these terms.
MRR, right?
Oh my God, MRR, your favorite. And so this is so rewarding. Mm-hmm. It's rewarding in an incredible way. One thing about our members, they're all, financially savvy, and they invest with the hope of getting a return. But they all say to me, every single one, yeah, I want to invest, but I can do more. I can help more. I've just never experienced that in any organization like that. Like they want to bring so much more of them. And I think it's because so many of us are in technology and financial fields where we are alone. I know you started a couple of affinity groups in technology, both where you worked, I think it was Cisco, and then high tech. But a lot of those high-level executives are alone. There's no one else that understands their culture. They don't see, like you said to me, as one of the early investors in the Angel Group, the Irish Angels.
Which one?
Notre Dame.
Hallow or no?
In Irish Angels. Yeah. And you said we'd see so many every quarter. I never see a Latino group. It's so strange. We're the number one new business entrepreneurship group, and yet none come there. And then at most there's two of us in the room, but generally it was just one. You said that. Mm-hmm. I remember that as being like why you wanted to do something that was more inclusive. So, I mean, I can go on and on about this, but the key is we are bringing a unique opportunity. Because on your own, you're not going to find these opportunities. On your own, you're not going to be able to just invest 10 or 20 in something like this. We're giving you an opportunity to diversify your investment by putting in small amounts. Because you know how the economics of this is. Yeah. You invest in 10, maybe one succeeds. It's just not... It's
in a major way,
tough.
Right?
Yeah, it's tough to break through and become a multi-million-dollar enterprise when you start from nothing, from $1 million. So it's very hard. And I think that that is what's so special about Angeles and what we are doing here.
Yeah, it's and we're just warming up, at Angeles. We have so much ahead of us, and your, the what I find amazing is that you're in all these different areas of the financial service, throughout your career, right? And that, I'll call it at the pinnacle, right, of your career. You're saying, hey, all the reasons you just talked about, why this venture asset class is so exciting, and what we're building, and what we're doing there, and then the 500 or so members that have come along with us for the ride, and more to come, When this podcast is exponential growth, and when you think about the tech trends that, and you see a lot of deals, you're investing in a lot of deals. What tech trends excite you the most?
Well, when we took companies public, a number of them were tech driven. Mm-hmm. So I have seen, and if you're in the market, and I've been in the market as an investor since the 80s, right? I graduated in 1980. What are the corporations that have grown exponentially? They're tech.
It's tech.
So there's no question that we are in a disruptive period for technology where almost every process is being dynamically impacted by another one that accelerates it.
Yep.
And it's also true in medicine.
Yep.
And, so biotech.
Almost every industry, right?
Almost everything. So I love those that are able to change, manufacturing, because here in Chicago, a lot of our clients were also manufacturing. They were either the autos or auto part manufacturers and derivatives of that. And anything that you could do to accelerate that means that maybe the cycle can grow, so you get to be the productivity.
Yep.
And that's what we've seen in the economy in America. Productivity continuously. Where does that come from? It comes from technology. People talk a lot about AI, and AI is great, but AI has been around for a long time. We've had it in our portfolio at Angeles almost from the beginning. Yeah. AI is, how do you analyze, a lot of the data, and then how are you able to make it accessible again in summary fashion? I think in our very first pitch, we had a company in AI that's still, I think they were in the legal field. Mm-hmm. They're still there. And I think that that's great, mm-hmm. because I saw it at Smith Barney, where I started doing the charts, doing the comparisons, yeah. of the stock comparisons. So, and it was all by hand. And that was like the first year and a half, maybe 2 years. And then the second year, I was asked to go back to New York and get trained on something called Lotus. And I remember going back, and I always stayed at home with my parents. And I remember leaving the house that day to take the Long Island Railroad and telling my mom, I don't know if this is something I'm going to be able to do. They have such high expectations of this. And then, I learned Lotus. It was the most amazing thing.
Lotus,
that
right?
spreadsheet.
Yeah, no, that was that was
changed
transformation
everything.
for me too, right?
No, for us.
Yeah.
The analyst pool that and the support. They used to white out when we made a mistake. It had to be whited out, retyped over it, and then the Selectric was a big factor in the the IBM machine that
amazing.
So when I saw what Lotus could do, and we had to do. I still carry around my 10C computer where we could do mortgage calculations and all kinds of things, and so could this. I became an expert in it. I trained everybody on it. It changed the way, because then you could do other things.
Of course.
Then you could go to the meeting because
you
you finished it in time, and you could go to the meeting. Oh my gosh, it was just, and you didn't have to stay there till midnight, and you didn't have to beg the secretary to fix it one more time. It was just amazing. now that has changed. I mean, I think now it's Excel and what
Yeah.
you can do with Excel
It's just
and the formatting and the modeling. I always loved
Oh my
modeling.
gosh,
And so I've just seen it in my field.
it's amazing.
And then also the news, you used to go and watch the ticker tape, and now it's just coming over the internet,
Reports,
everything,
graphs.
everything.
Amazing.
And it's just the data you can acquire and analyze. It's almost too much. And so then if you can have screens
Yeah.
to help you analyze, oh my gosh, it's just you don't have to do it by hand or
Yeah.
traveling to these meetings. We saw it during the pandemic, right? When traveling stopped, but yet
Yeah.
asset management continued.
Yeah.
I'm a director of 3 funds, as you said, and 3 different family of funds, and that was a big concern. How is trading and portfolio management going to happen without travel?
Yeah.
And it happened great. I mean, then
Yeah.
it gets to a point you got to go and see, you got to kick the tires, but it could get done in a very effective way, and I think that opened up a lot of eyes. So,
Yeah.
and I have friends that have the robots for cleaning.
Yeah.
I don't have those yet, but I think that they look amazing to me.
They're coming.
Yeah.
And
no, but they're there. You
no,
can buy them.
you're right. They're there and they're coming, kind of thing. Like they're there, but it's is only scratching the surface. I'm getting ready to put out a little post on this. It's an amazing data point. That's just mine. There will be more humanoid. I think the year is 2040. There will be more humanoid robots on the earth than humans. And this is exponential growth. So I'm writing an article. It's going to be actually my first newsletter that comes out. So Adela, when you think about what's next for you, just give us an idea of amazing accomplishments, right? And what you're doing. And we got Angeles, you got boards. What's the next? What's next for you?
Well, we're soon to close Fund 1 for Angeles Ventures, where you and I are co-general partners. And I think that what it opened my eyes to is the strength of the market that we're invested in. Because how can it be that with 5, now 6, yesterday 6, we made our 6th investment yesterday. With 6 investments, how could 3 already have shown appreciation in a business that where the tail is long? And this is really a very strong record. I'm very proud of what we're doing there. And that's only going to intensify and open up the door for us to consider opportunities for a fund too. So I'm gearing up for that. And, I'm enjoying learning about the new technologies and the new companies and the young people that are running them. And I like this space. I don't know what's next. That seems to me a lot. I'm already super busy. So I'm happy in what I'm doing. I want to do more of it because the more we can raise, the more we can help other very successful startups in the Latino space, which is where the growth is. I mean, it's not about, it's about seeing where is the growth.
Yeah.
And the growth is there.
There's exponential growth there.
It's there. So how are we going to ignore that? We can't. And so let's bring the capital to meet that level of demand. That's the opportunity, I think.
Well, it's a big one, and I'm so honored to be on the journey with you. As over the next, decade-ish and longer to make that happen. So, Adela, it's been really an honor to have you on the podcast, sharing your life story, a bit about investing, venture, a bit of what's next, opening up a little bit, right? Sharing a little bit of personal stories but amazing leader, in my opinion, of financial services industry luminary, and honored to have that expertise and the breadth of expertise with us at Angeles on the angel side, and also in Angeles Ventures, and many more great things to come. And so, how do people? How do they connect with you on social media?
Well, LinkedIn is the
LinkedIn's where you're
best,
big.
and through Angeles as well.
Through
and
Angeles
so,
as
yeah,
well.
but LinkedIn,
Okay.
yeah, thanks so much. It's been real fun to talk this way. We don't get a
No,
chance to do
no,
it.
it's actually kind
We
of
have to do it
exactly. So interviewing
podcast.
in a podcast, and I think it's a bit open, right? So we can share a little bit more about your experiences, and I've known and I've learned more about it over time, and just glad we could share it with those wonderful viewers out there. So thank you, Adela.
Thank you.
All right.